Hello class, today we're going to go ahead and start Chapter 7. Our first section in Chapter 7 is operations on functions. So we're going to be looking at adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing functions today. So let's go ahead and just get started by looking at an example. Carol owns a store where she sells birdhouses. The revenue from birdhouse sales is given by R of x equals 125x. So revenue, remember, is how much money completely she brings in. Okay, she sells them, I would assume, for $125 a piece, so that's her revenue. Okay, the cost of making the birdhouse is given by the following equation. Okay, so how would you find the profit Carol earns on her sales? Well, the way you can find profit is by taking revenue, the total amount of money that she brings in, and subtracting the cost. Okay, so what we want to do is write a profit function for Carol's sales. Well, our profit will be equal to the revenue, which we read above is 125x, minus the cost, which is 65x plus 5,400. Okay. If I go ahead and simplify this, I would distribute that negative minus that's what I did, distribute the negative, and I would go ahead and combine my like terms. So 125x minus 65x will give us 60x minus 5,400. This is the equation that would represent Carol's total profit. And if you look here, we did subtraction, so this is difference. So the operation that we did with two functions was subtraction. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look at all of these. So let f of x and g of x be two functions. You can add, subtract, multiply, and divide the functions given these rules. So, sum. The way this would look is if I would just take, you'd break it apart. It'd be f of x plus g of x. And the way you're going to solve this is you're just going to go ahead and combine your like terms. When it's addition, all you need to do is combine like terms. So, the right-hand column we have is an example. So, f of x is x plus 2, okay, and g of x, so we're going to add these, so plus 3x. So all I need to do is add my like terms. So x plus 3x gives me 4x plus 2. There are my two functions added together. Okay. Now difference, well, it's going to just be f of x minus g of x. In this case, you want to distribute the subtraction. And after you go ahead and distribute the subtraction, you want to combine the like terms again. Okay, so in our example here, it says f of x, so it'd be x plus 2 minus my g of x, which is 3x. So I would have x plus 2 minus 3x. I combine my like terms, I would get negative 2x plus 2. So there's my two functions, subtracted or difference of the two. Product. We're going to go ahead and just take f of x times g of x. So once again, what we need to do here is you need to distribute, and then lastly, combine your like terms. Okay, so my two functions here, f of x is x plus 2, g of x is 3x. So I would distribute. X times 3x gives me 3x squared. 3x times 2 gives me 6x. There are my two functions multiplied together. And lastly, quotient, division. So the way we would do division is it would be f of x divided by g of x. And there's a little bit of a restriction on this one. G of x cannot equal 0. Okay, the reason that it cannot equal 0 is because you can't divide by 0. And then what we're going to do for this one is divide each term by the denominator. Okay, so my f of x is x plus 2, and it's being divided by g of x, which is 3x. So I would divide each term by the denominator, because we just got done doing division. X over x simplifies to 1, so I have 1/3 plus 2 over 3 to the x. Sorry, over 3x. And there would be my division. Okay. Now let's go ahead. Example 1. We're given f of x and g of x. We need to find the following. So A is showing us that we want to go ahead and do addition. Okay. So f of x is x squared minus 3x plus 1 plus my g of x, 4x plus 5. Combine your like terms. Well, there's only one x squared. Minus 3x plus 4x, so plus x. 1 and 5, so plus 6. So when I add them, I get x squared plus x plus 6. B. We need to go ahead and do the difference. So I would have my f of x, x squared minus 3x plus 1, minus my g of x function, which is 4x plus 5. I would distribute that negative to each part here. So I would have x squared minus 3x plus 1 minus 4x minus 5. Then I'm going to go ahead and combine my like terms. X squared, there's only one. Negative 3x minus 4x is negative 7x. And 1 minus 5 gives me negative 4. Okay, so when I do the difference, I get x squared minus 7x minus 4. Okay, example 2. This time we're going to go ahead and multiply the two functions. So I would have x squared plus 5x minus 1 times 3x minus 2. And we need to distribute. So I need to take my 3x and distribute. So I would get 3x a third plus 15x minus 3x. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and multiply everything by my negative 2. So I would get negative 2x squared minus 10x plus 2. Then I would combine my like terms. 3x to the third, that's the only one I have. Then I would go, keep it in order, I'd have minus 2x squared. Now I have my x's. And if you look, I made a little mistake, didn't I? 3x times 5x should be 15x squared. My bad. So I need to combine negative 2x and 15x squared would be 13x squared. All right, and then minus 3x minus 10x, so negative 13x, and lastly my plus 2. Okay, so when you go ahead and multiply by distribute, you distribute, when you multiply would be 3x to the third. My bad. When I recopied that, I didn't do that very well, sorry. 3x to the third plus 13x squared minus 13x plus 2. That is what you get when you multiply the two. Okay. B, we are dividing. Okay. So my f of x function would be x squared plus 5x minus 1 divided by my g of x, which is 3x minus 2. This one is not a monomial, so you cannot divide each part, so you can just leave it as is. Okay. Go ahead and just leave it like that. All right, example 3. If f of x represents the length of a rectangle and g of x represents the width of the rectangle, write a function that represents the perimeter of the rectangle. Okay, well, think about our perimeter. If I have a rectangle, I would have my length and my length and my width and my width. So my perimeter is w plus l plus w plus l. And if I combine my like terms, I have 2w plus 2l. That's what my perimeter would be. So I'm going to go ahead and write that out. The perimeter will equal 2 times my width, and they said that g of x is my width, so 2 times 4x plus 25, plus 2 times the length, and they said the length is 5x squared plus 3x minus 2. And we want to go ahead and simplify this, so I would distribute the 2 here, plus distribute the 2 to this part, we'll get 10x squared plus 6x minus 4. Then I would combine my like terms, 10x squared, 8x and 6x, which gives you 14x, and 50 minus 4, so plus 46. And there is my perimeter, and we would label perimeter in units. We don't know what it is, so that's my representation for perimeter. Okay. Moving on to example 4. Okay. Before we go on to 4, if you need a break, now would be a good time to maybe take a little bit of a break. If you have any questions, make sure you pause the video, write down questions, ask me the next day in class. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to example 4. But feel free to take a break if you need to. Or if you need to rewind and rewatch something, go ahead. Example 4 then. Given f of x and g of x, find the following. Well, f of 2. Well, if I look, those two are in the same spot. So wherever there's an x, now I'm going to go ahead and put in a 2. So to find f of 2, wherever there was an x, I put a 2. 2 plus 3 is 5. Okay. The next one, it says g of negative 3. Well, since it's g, now I'm going to be using my g function. And wherever there was an x, because see how the negative 3 is taking the spot of the x, I plug in negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. Minus 3 minus 1. 9 minus 3 gives me 6. 6 minus 1 gives me 5. C is a little bit more complicated. Okay, it's a function inside of a function. So we always start on the inside, on the innermost part. So we go ahead and figure out, well, what is g of 3 first? We just did that in part B. We found that g of negative 3. We found that g of negative 3 is 5. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and substitute that in. All of this is 5, so now I can say, well, what is f of 5? So in order to figure out f of 5, I plug in 5 to my f function, which is x plus 3, or in this case, 5 plus 3. So I would get 8. So my answer for this one, okay, is that f of g of negative 3 is equal to 8. Okay. Moving on to D, we're probably going to have to do a little bit more work on D. Okay. First thing, we always start with the innermost. We find f of negative 1. My f function is x plus 3. So in this case, it's negative 1 plus 3, which gives me 2. So all of this part is 2. So now I would substitute in here 2. So I'm going to find g of 2. That will give me my answer. So I plug in 2 to my g function. So I have 2 squared plus 2 minus 1. So I would have 4 plus 2 minus 1. So 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 minus 1 is 5. So my answer for g of f of negative 1 is 5. All right. The next part is a little bit more complex. We are doing the composition of two functions. You're taking one function and putting it inside of another function. Okay. Once again, always start with the innermost function. Okay. We have g of x, and it's being put into f of x. So what I'm going to do is g of x, I'm really finding, well, g of x was x squared plus x minus 1. So now wherever in my f function, wherever there's an x, I'm going to go ahead and write that. So this is going to give me x squared plus x minus 1, okay, because that was where my x is. Took up all that, plus 3. Then all I need to do is go ahead and combine my like terms. Negative 1 plus 3 gives me 2. So f of g of x is equal to x squared plus x plus 2. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing, but now we're going to put f of x inside our g of x function. Okay, so I'm going to put g, and then I'm going to put my f of x function inside of there. So my f of x is x plus 3. So wherever there is an x in my g of x function, I'm now going to write x plus 3. So it's x plus 3 squared plus x plus 3 minus 1. Now I need to go ahead. X plus 3 squared is really x plus 3 times x plus 3. And I need to FOIL this piece. Okay. So when I do that, I would have x squared plus 3x plus 3x plus 9. And I'm going to go ahead and combine these. So plus x plus 2. Now I combine all my like terms to get my final answer. So I would have x squared plus 7x plus 7. Sorry, plus 11. 9 plus 2 is 11. So my g of f of x function is x squared plus 7x plus 11. So this is composite functions. So we have a little box below here that talks about composite functions. So suppose f and g are two functions. Then f of g, this little circle is f of g, of x is equal to, and the way I would read this is f of g of x. Okay? So f of g of x. So every time you see those parentheses, that's how you would say it. So the way this works, if it looks like this, you plug g of x into f of x, and that's how you would get the composition. So this example here, it says if f of x is equal to x squared and g of x is equal to 3x plus 4, it says find f of g, which really is the same as this. So you take your g of x function and put it into f. Okay, so f of g of x. Take this, plug it into here wherever there is an x. So it would be 3x plus 4 squared, and once again, whenever it's squared, we need to FOIL. So I would get 9x squared plus 12x plus 12x plus 16. And when I combine my like terms, I will get my f of g of x function. So I would have 9x squared plus 24x plus 16. Okay. Here's the opposite. Before we did f of g of x, here is, they're showing g of f of x. So in order to find g of f of x, essentially what they're saying is you take your x value, you put it into your function f. Okay, that gives you f of x. Now you take your f of x function, plug it into g, and out you will get your g of x function. Okay, we're going to go ahead and try another one. Try this one. Find f of g of x if f of x equals 3x squared minus 4 and g of x equals 2x minus 1. So we're taking g of x and we're putting it into f of x. So here's g of x. Means wherever there's an x, I'm going to put it into f of x. So to find f of g of x, okay, I would have 3 times 2x minus 1 squared minus 4. Got a FOIL. Don't forget about that 3 out in front. So I'm going to have 4x squared minus 2x plus 1. Now I'm going to combine my like terms in my parentheses. Actually, I'm just going to write it out here. This is going to give me negative 4x. Distribute this negative 3. Don't forget to rewrite down this minus 4. And then combine my last bit of terms. So I will have 12x squared minus 12x. 3 minus 4 is minus 1. And so I would have 12x squared minus 12x minus 1. That is my f of g of x. That is my composition of the two functions, putting the two together. Okay, we're going to go ahead and stop the video for there today. Please, if you have any questions, make sure you write them down. Ask me tomorrow in class. Otherwise, you have a great day.